This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Another episode of the 21.5 Show. Back from vacation, Max.
Yes.
How was your spring break non-rev adventure? You didn't make any social media posts, so.
Imagine that. It was fun, man. We were supposed to go skiing, and then I asked the kids, I'm like, hey, would you rather go skiing or go to Hawaii? Like, I don't know why. I just thought it'd be fun. And they're like, oh, Hawaii. So I looked at the flight. It was no problem getting out there. And then it was, it was a little tight on the way home, but like, we'll just get out there. We'll figure it out. Right. And we had a great time. Go to come back. Yeah. And everything's just a disaster. And you can see there's like a couple flights that had a bunch of seats like on Hawaiian, and then it fills up with people that didn't get on the American or whatever, it's just like everyone shuffling around, and you can, and when you don't go on your own airline, the priorities are different. So you get like last priority when you're not on your own airline. So then we'll keep going back in the count. And I'm just like, oh my God. So we end up, my wife finds a flight on Southwest to LA, right? That has seats. And we're like, all right, we'll do that. So it gets in late, like 11 o'clock at night or whatever. I'm like, well, the first flight out, LA's full. We can stay in a hotel. We can go over to Burbank. We can take that flight. That has seats. She goes, we're just going to drive. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, we're just going to rent a car and we're just going to drive home. I'm like, at 11 at night. I'm like, I cannot do that. That's why I don't fly red eyes. That's why I don't do PMs. I can't, I will fall asleep.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm good. I can do it. So I'm like, all right. So anyway, that's what we did. We rolled in, pulled an all-nighter, drove in from LA. I drove like an hour and she drove the rest like a champ. And then we rolled into our house literally 10 minutes before we normally leave for school. I told the kids, I'm like, all right, they slept the whole way, like racked out the entire way. And I'm like, all right, put some deodorant on, change your clothes, brush your teeth, get back in the car. We got to go to school. And they're like, and it worked out. But that's what it's, I was talking to you and you're like, oh my God. And I'm like, you know what is your family going to remember more? The time you went to Hawaii and airline there and airline back, on a tickets you bought, or the time you had to figure it out and drove an all-nighter to get back 10 minutes before school? You had to leave for school, Those memories aren't free, Dylan. It's all part of the adventure. That's
Exactly.
what I said. That's what I kept telling everyone. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, guys, it's all part of the game. It's part of the adventure. Let's keep a good attitude.
I like that. That is a good attitude. Yeah. I mean, now that being said, non-revving is an interesting perk of the job. And I don't know that we've ever really talked about it a ton on this show before, but it can be the best or the worst perk, because it makes it hard to buy a confirmed ticket, because you look at the money, especially with you're flying with a family, and you're like, oh my gosh, this could be, $2,500, $3,000 trip, or we could chance it and try and do the whole thing for $300, So the incentive is definitely there to try. It always seems like you can get wherever you're trying to go non-rev, you can usually get on the flight to get to the destination, no problem. It's always coming back that's the trick.
Well, it's all strategy. Like, you have to look at it to see, going between point A and point B, how many options you have. Like, how creative can you be?
Yeah.
Can you may have to connect somewhere instead of taking a direct flight or whatever, but you have to look at how many options you have to allow you to get creative to make it happen. And you also I don't non-rev to a cruise, because if you don't make it, the cruise is leaving without you. Like, you haven't saved any money at that point. Like you've just lost a lot of money. Right. So, or in the time of year, like, we're going to, my brother-in-law's wedding in London, and we're taking all the kids, but it's in October. Like, and there's a lot of ways to get to London. So for that, we're going to roll the dice and we're going to non-rev, because there's just a million different ways to get to London from a million different cities that, we can figure that out. And then, but we're going on a cruise over the summer that leaves out of Barcelona, like I already bought tickets for that. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and so like two.
You got to be smart with it. And as usual in aviation, flexibility is the key to non-rev power.
That's it. Well, you just have to not freak out. Like that's the problem. My wife, she starts to kind of freak out, and I'm like, just relax, dude. You can't don't worry about it till the day of because everything is changing. So there's no point.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's this I don't know if you even know about this. Do you know what Past Traveler is?
No, I think that was after my
the challenge is
non-rev
always
days.
to figure out what the load is on airlines you don't have the ability to check the load on, right? So you got to text your buddies and all this stuff. Well, there's a website and an app that's really cool called Past Traveler. And so you post on there, someone says, hey, I want to see what the load is on Southwest, whatever flight, Phoenix to San Jose, right? And so we go on, or she does, she goes on there, she checks it, she posts the load, and then she gets a credit, right? And that credit is then good for her to post, say, hey, I need British Airways flight, whatever, Phoenix to Heathrow. And then somebody at BA will check that load and post it. So that's how you can earn credits checking for other people. And then they will, and it happens like you would think you would post and sit there. Like it's like in seconds. It's big. It's crazy. I don't even really know that much how it works because she does all that. And I was watching in Hawaii. I'm like, and like she would like miss one, like to try and check and earn a credit because people snap them up so fast. It's crazy. It's very active. So it's a great system.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense the way they the way they have the little economy built in there. That's smart.
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
Anyway, how was your spring break?
Oh, it was great. I took my kids up to see the folks, and we had an awesome time. It was funny because we live in Scottsdale, as most listeners know, and March in Scottsdale is about as good as it gets. So it's kind of silly to leave for spring break sometimes, I think, because it's the best weather of the year. And so we went to the Oregon coast, which is where my folks live and a lot of my family. And I was like, it's going to be 50 and raining, but it's okay. We're just going to see family and cousins. I had a new nephew that was born, visit him, So lots to do family-wise. So I wasn't so much concerned about the weather. It turned out it was like this freak high-pressure system over the Oregon coast. It was 70 degrees and sunny, no wind, and raining in Scottsdale. So we timed it perfectly. So it worked out great.
For once.
And I know. So it was a great trip. We had a lot of fun. So appreciate the listeners understanding that we took a week off. And we've got a lot to get to, Max. We're playing catch up here. So we're going to have to do 2 flight advices today, a bunch of emails to read. We've got reviews. But where I want to start, this stunned me. You when we were talking about how we're going to do the beginning of the show, you said we're going to have to talk about a Facebook group. And that's not something you would normally suggest. So we're going to have to lead things off. Do you want to intro what the hot news is right now?
Well, I struggle with this immensely because this is that PJP, Professional Jet Pilots group, which is becoming so far from anything resembling professional. And this Jeff Kersey guy is the biggest attention whore. So I hate to even talk about it, but it's right now to watching it just implode, and him just the inability to bite his tongue is incredible. I don't know, you want to explain kind of what's going on? Like his brother is one of the pilots that's alleged, you've seen it in the news, it's on AIN, everywhere else, that they were embezzled a bunch of money from John Travolta via this fake fuel discount program.
Yeah.
And which just gives all of us a bad rap, it's not good. It's like $800,000 is what he's accused of. And then you got this guy, his brother, he takes these selfie videos with his his Blades sunglasses on. I just can't. I'm just like, this guy's got to stop. This has got to end. And then you sent me this ministry that. Can you explain that? I don't say.
Man, it just, and of course, these all accusations. No one's been proved guilty of anything, so this is all alleged, but it just seems like it's a nonstop stream of something from this group, and if it's not one thing, it's another.
People love,
it's just
it's a reality show is what it is come to be. Most of it has nothing to, that's why I even send you, I'm like, should we start a Facebook group of to actual professional, discussion and relevant stuff versus Jeff Kersey's ministry. He's started with a picture of him in the cockpit and some other dude I mean, it's unreal. Like I can't.
I call that group the gift that keeps on giving. And it's funny because there's a lot of people posting, I'm out of here, I'm leaving, I'm quitting. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is what I'm here for. This is incredible.
I know. It is. It's like a bad car accident, dude. You can't not look because, especially if it's like a car accident of somebody that is really irritating, to watch him crash and burn is just, and it's a lot. So I hope that this whole thing just goes out with a huge bang and just implodes. And that will be the end of it. And we can just laugh about it. But
it could be. I mean, it could be. I don't know. It's just, the thing is that it's, if you understand what it is and not like what you're saying, we should have this group of professionals and get all this great information. Those groups exist. That's not what this group is for. It needs to be, renamed. I don't even know what you would call it. Like, but it's just
the pilot drama.
It is. It's just for entertainment purposes only type thing at this point. So
I guess you're right. I guess I'm looking too far into it. That it just needs to take the professional pilots part out of it and just be like,
yeah. It's the pilot T group or something. I don't know.
But these selfie videos, dude. That's what I can't like.
Yeah.
It's too
tough.
much.
Yeah, and
this guy. But the funny part is he believes it. He believes himself. That's the craziest part. I'm just glad we're carrying the pilot mental health torch for Jeff because he might be in need of some mental health soon.
I don't know. And the other funny thing is, it's like it fits with the South Florida stereotype of like all the things you hear about like aviation down there, and it's like, and it's just like watch out for South Florida charter brokers, or watch out for South Florida aircraft brokers, and then you hear about this fuel scheme, and it's just like, man, it's just, you would think that the word would be out from high net worth individuals down there. Just like, you know what I mean? Like you'd think that those guys are all pretty smart businessmen for the most part. And a lot of people are like, hey, careful. But I don't know. It's interesting. But the problem is,
all right,
if you have the wrong guy, like Travolta's got a lot of money. You feel like that's probably not the guy you want to be doing this with.
Well, if you're what do you mean? That's exactly who you want to rip off, or people with a lot of money. What do you like?
Until you get caught, and then they can go after you, and then.
Well, it's not, dude. It's fraud.
Well,
he's going to, whatever. We got to move on. I can't even anymore with this guy.
Okay. All right, Max is starting his own Facebook group, and he's going to be doing selfie videos.
Then I have to moderate. I'm not going to do that. If you moderate it, I'll start it.
There's no way. It sounds like a great job for your son.
Yeah, right.
Perfect.
I don't think so.
Get him on the payroll. All right, moving on. Lots to get to here. Anything else oh man, I had an interesting one yesterday. Coming into Scottsdale, we had a thunderstorm, and we had a last second wind shift. Significant wind shift, went from 4-knot crosswind to like a 28-knot tailwind on final. And it was just one of those where you're like, oh, you could just see it all the pieces sort of coming together. And then it's one of those, it's like, you know what? We got to go around. And it's been a while since I got around in the airplane. And it was good. It was good to do that. And we just were so lucky that we were empty too. So it was like the perfect leg to like practice that on. But it was just a good like exercise in decision making. And it was one of those where you looked at it, and you probably could have put the airplane down. You probably would have landed, a significant ways down the runway, but it could have possibly been done. But it was a really good check of like, hey, just go around. It's not a big deal. And at the end of the day, you go around and you come back and they change the runway and you have everything. And it took an extra 5 minutes, and it was great practice, and it was just really good. And you landed, it was one of those where I was texting him like, man, we made the right choice. And it just felt good to do that and just be like, it's not that big of a deal. So that was my takeaway.
Yeah, that's it. What's really interesting about that is that within a couple days of that, we also did our first go around in the 280, and we also had no passengers on board. And it's because Scottsdale keeps running everybody in with a big tailwind because of our presidential TFR, where this is so annoying too. It's like, dude, pick a hotel that's not right next to one of the busiest airports around. Like, it's so idiotic. Yeah. And they shut the airport down because he was staying at a hotel that was right down the street. Like, But even then, before then, wasn't the ring of the TFR like really like they make you make like a really close in base? Because otherwise you would have
turn your final within 2 miles.
It's like, dude, and it's like it's the same thing. So they kept running the other runway, and it was big. It was tailwind. You know, it was less than 10 knots. So we were, but the same thing. It was gusty, and there's unstable weather and stuff. And Christian was flying. He ended up electing to make the go around, and the same thing. It was great practice. It was perfect. There was no one in the back, so you didn't have to explain, you know, kind of what was going on. But how much do you think that it affected your decision to go around with the fact that there was nobody in the back?
You know what? Honestly, not at all. I didn't even think about it at the time because that wind shift came so quick, and we just got that big, huge push, and you're out of position. It didn't even enter my mind. It was just like, this isn't going to work. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so it was good, and it was cool that cool to see that. And it's so insidious. That wind can be so insidious, especially aloft, especially in Scottsdale where there's mountains and stuff. So what's aloft may not be what's on the ground. And of course, the tower's like baiting you into it the whole time over the radio. They're like, oh no, it's 4
variable
knots.
3.
It's a 4 knot crosswind. That's it. Variable of 4. And you're like, well, yeah, but my FMS is showing that, you know, the wind is picking up and just getting more and more. So yeah, it was good practice.
Variable,
so
I always count on variable, meaning direct tailwind. That's like in the performance, when it's variable of 4, I put in a direct tailwind of 4. But that's why that thing I've talked about before that we do at the airline, and we do it in our corporate operation too, is the planned touchdown point thing. Because you say, hey, I'm going to touch down in the touchdown zone. You know, I'm planning to touch down between 1,000 and 1,500 feet. But in the event that I don't have the airplane on the ground by whatever it is, and you change it based on the runway length and conditions and whatever. But if say it's if I don't have it down by the 2,000 foot marker or taxiway, whatever, which is this far down the runway, then we're automatically going to go around. That way there's no like, oh, it's close. I don't know, maybe I can make it. You just go. Like if you're not on the ground by this point, which you've already briefed and everybody's on the same page, then you just go. And I think that's really a good thing to do. It's even more important in a Part 91 where you have the boss that you work for is sitting right behind you. And then there's situations like you were in where it's obvious, like you just know as a pilot when things are getting sideways, it's like, oh, we got to go. But I think it's the floating thing is where where a lot of the ambiguity is. And that's why, we have this policy at Southwest. We brief, and then that's why we brought it into our corporate operation too, because it just takes the ambiguity. You don't want to be waffling on a decision while you're skating 2 feet above the ground at 120 knots. Like that's not the time to do it. So,
what do you use in Scottsdale, just for my own?
Well, it depends.
Knowledge.
It depends on what the calculated landing distance. But for most long runways, it's usually by the end of the touchdown zone markings, 3,000 feet. If it's at least 9,000 foot runway or close, and so normally with a runway like that, unless it's wet or whatever, it depends on what your calculated landing distance is, and then you have a margin that you apply to that, and then and make the decision. So.
Well, speaking of this, since we've been discussing over the past few episodes this Challenger 350 versus G280 debate, and we both went around in one of those airplanes. We got an email from our local Bombardier sales rep, Paula, sent us an email because she listened to our episode, and so she sent me all these informational flyers. So there's actually they have a Challenger 3500 versus G280 informational pamphlet.
Oh.
So it's got all this great information. I wish I would have had when we would have done the first episode. I could have really come armed and just.
I'm sure it's very unbiased coming from Bombardier.
Yeah, definitely a product of Bombardier, but there is some good information. I mean, look, I guess it's really interesting that Bombardier really rides the flat floor as the most important, one of the most important features. But she did have a good point. She said, here is one thing, and I completely missed this. She goes, one of the most important things about the flat floor that the owners love is to have their dog be able to lay down.
Oh my God, really?
But I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? The last 2 jobs I've had, that is kind of a big deal.
Why can your dog not lay in the moat, like in the? That's ridiculous. Now
maybe you could. Maybe you want your dog at your feet.
All right, That's just an act of desperation right there. Dylan, there's one thing really about the flat
thinking
floor.
About the people
everyone's
that
dogs are much more comfortable. Give me a break, dude.
They are. I'm telling you.
You know what? Dogs have
I actually
have
buy
a
that.
much more sensitive sense of smell, Dylan. So I bet they're much more comfortable not having everyone's turds recirculated over and over in the lab and having it just vacuumed to a tank. I bet they're much. I bet they're much happier about that than the floor space on the private jet for them to lay down.
Okay. All right. Well, the debate continues. I don't think so. I didn't convince you. Then you're not going to put the G280 up for sale.
The Bob.
No. Okay.
You know what? That's actually, yeah. You know, now that I think about it, Dylan, you're right. We made a horrible decision here.
Put it up there. Yep.
The dog on.
It's okay.
Was that a joke or was that real?
I'm telling you. No, it's real.
Because were the owners getting complaints from the
people.
dog and the hawker before that had the sunken floor?
Yeah.
The dog just
we got to get out of this XLS.
It gave my Labrador hip dysplasia laying on that sunken floor. Those bastards.
Dude, but I'm telling you, like, my last boss had a bunch of dogs, and we would fly them around. Like, it would have been hard to accommodate them in that with a step down aisle.
Oh, man, listen, the struggle's real. I get it.
That's why there's options on the marketplace. So you don't have to get locked in. But thanks, Apollo, for shooting over that information. And this debate will never end, which is my favorite part.
Yeah.
It's an unwinnable debate, so it's just great. You could just go back and forth.
It would
it's
have been
like
more fun
politics,
if we could fly the same airplane, so we could fly together again occasionally, but this is second best. Right?
Yeah, that would be fun. All right. Putting that to bed, on to the reviews, Max. 2 good reviews. I'll read the first one. You can read the second one. First one comes from Dave G77. He says, awesome. Just found the podcast and have to say thanks. You guys are keeping it real and in real time with current situations among the industry. You've given me a 2.0 guy hope that at 46, I might still be able to fly commercially, assuming I get off my butt and go fly. Thanks again for keeping it real and entertaining at the same time.
Right. Maverick 152002 says, podcast still slapping. Or is it slapping? Or slap so hard? Whatever. It's awesome. Great podcast for current and future professional aviators. Good info, great guests, and fun stories. Plus, nice little nuggets on the points front. The podcast would be perfect if they would just add a UND guy or gal to balance out all the E area you love. But for real, great show. Thanks for helping me eat up the airport appreciation time. We had Tom Haig on. He was a big UND guy. So,
yeah, big UND guy. But as a regular third panel person, would you ever consider adding a UND person?
Not based on the fact that they went to UND, but just if they had something to add, I would not hold it against them. How about that? Maybe we'll go to that UND party. Okay. UND party at Oshkosh every year is supposed to be real fun. We should go there and bring a microphone with and just.
Yeah, we should check that out. Because I don't really have. Did you ever consider UND when you were going to school?
No, I don't believe so. No.
Because, I mean, you grew up in Arizona, so it was pretty.
Yeah, I was like.
Pretty logical to just go to the Arizona school.
Why would I go to NODAC when I could?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't, in all my exhaustive research in the pre-internet days, I don't even think I knew UND existed.
I was just going to say,
maybe
plus I didn't know anything. So I just I literally got a pamphlet at my high school. I was like, oh, this looks like fun.
This is good. Okay, airplanes. All right, perfect.
The Harvard of the skies, huh? That sounds pretty nice. That sounds pretty good.
But I don't hold anything against UND. Is it? Some of our friends that were on the flight team are more competitive.
Oh God!
Like they're not like, I don't see them as a rival or anything. No.
But UND was like a real university. I mean, it's kind of a different.
Oh yeah. See, yeah, there was tons of benefits there because that was like a real university. They like had sports teams you could like go cheer for, and I think you would get a more of the university experience
for sure.
up there.
You're just in North Dakota.
It just would be a lot colder. Yeah, it would be a lot colder. But I'm sure a lot of people had a great time there. You can't go wrong. All right. Thanks for the reviews. To everyone that wrote in, shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com, and we'll be happy to shoot you some stickers for your trouble. Be sure and include your mailing address in that email so I know where to send them. On to the Mailbag, Max. Lots to read. And of course, you know that the Mailbag is sponsored by our friends at the Advanced Aircrew Academy, aircrewacademy.com. You can visit their website to see all of their training available to folks in business aviation. You know that boring 3-letter acronym training system that you have to use for 135? No more. There's another option. Well created by industry experts and pilots. These are entertaining courses And I just want to tease their blog, which is awesome. And we like to visit every once in a while. They have, I was trying to pick one to promote, but they have 3 great blog posts that I'm going to have to go back and read after the episode. They have the Global Action Plan for Prevention of Runway Incursions. That's their latest post. The next one is the high cost of low pay training. And the third one is Easy Button for Business Aviation Auto Landing.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
Those are
That's
all kind of interest me. So I kind of want to read all those. So check out their website at aircrewacademy.com/blog and see what they're talking about. All their subject matter experts are great, and they write great content for the business. All right, on to the emails. Number 1, I'll make a short story way too long, and here's my 5 cents worth because of inflation. I am an amazing husband. I bought my wife the Bose Proflight 2 with Bluetooth for Christmas in 2022. She was concerned that her OG U-Fly mic was going to die at any moment. Well, the thing just kept on working like the Energizer Bunny, so I stole her Proflight. Well, her U-Fly mic finally did die, and she stole her headset back. So I needed a new headset. You fellas did a nice little review a while back on various setups, so I found your blog post to remind myself what your thoughts were. I ended up buying the Clarity Aloft with Bluetooth. Now, for my review, the batteries seem to last much longer on the Bose. The Clarity Aloft is much lighter. In my humble opinion, the noise cancellation is about the same between the two. So I'm not really an audiophile, but I do listen to music while in cruise, and the Bose wins hands down on sound quality, no real surprise. For me, I prefer the Clarity Aloft primarily because they are lighter, and cheaper was nice too. Can't really go wrong with either, though. Best to both of you, and that's from our friend Peter.
It's fun. It's really funny that this. I didn't know that this until you just read it. That was coming up. But the guy I'm on a trip right now on a 3-day trip with the captain I'm flying with. It's his first trip with the Proflight. You know, because part of our new contract, you get $1,000 headset stipend, right? So with this discount from our union and blah blah blah, it comes out to $1,004. So it really maximizes your allotment, right? So he has this. He's been wearing the Telex, like company issued Telex, for the last 25 years, right? And now he's got this Proflight.
Oh, a man of the people. Ted would approve.
watching him mess with this thing constantly. I've been making fun of him for 2 straight days about the headset and blaming everything on the headset, and he can't figure it out. And it hurts his ear, and then it hurts this ear, and he can't figure out. He's got his glasses all like cocked to get over. And I'm like. They were having a lot of fun with the fact, and he's like telling the ground people that are going to push the airplane. He's like, sorry, I got a new headset. I'm trying to figure it out. You know, it's like complaining to everybody about this new headset. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I'll make you a deal. I'll buy this headset back from you for $500, and you can just use your Telex. It's going to save you a lot of hassle and a lot of grief that you're going through right now.
Yeah,
he's just so funny, but. Yeah, I don't.
Perfect.
The thing about that's what I told him today, because we were talking literally about this, and he's like, I go, if you I feel like the Proflight and the Clarity Loft, it's either you can handle things in your ears or you can't, right? That seems to be the big divide. Like people that want the
right
clamps is that
yep.
You like our friend Sean, he just can't handle stuff in his ear. And some people are like that, and you can do the molded earpieces you can get from the hearing aid people or whatever, but I just do the plugs, right? But it's like, my thought is, if you're going to have something that's in your ear, like, why do you want something also on your head? Can you explain that to me? Like, it's so small. Like, why do you need it on your head?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like a headband,
so you're saying
like
the
over
Bose
top of your
Proflight
head.
versus
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think Bose said, we need to do a lightweight headset. How can we do it? And that's what they came up with. And their thought was not, let's avoid the headband.
It is more substantial than the Clarity Loft for sure. And I think it requires more support of your head, but it's just like, it still has like the thing that clamps on your head, kind of those pads, and stuff. I was just looking when we were talking about it, I was thinking about that today. I'm like, what? I don't know. That's my favorite part about that Clarity Loft, is because it's so nice to not have anything on your head. Well, it's so funny because he's very disturbed about not being able to hear stuff now that he's used to hearing in the plane. And that's what I said. I'm like, I flew with Yeah. And I flew with A20s once because I'd left my headset somewhere, and that's what I have for, my plane that's very loud, and they're very appropriate in that setting, but it was way too much attenuation. You can't even hear the engines spooling up and down. It's weird. So anyway, we've probably beat that horse to death multiple times.
All right. You want to read this next email, Max?
Gentlemen, I wanted to share my opinion on the headset etiquette question when jump seating. I always plug in my headset, but make a point of saying I'm going to plug in my headphones only. I do this for a few reasons. I tend to jump seat during banker's hours and find that many crews try to chat with me. I find it disrespectful to partake in a conversation and not also have an ear in on the comm, as I do not want to inadvertently interrupt a transmission to that flight. Secondly, I was SFO based for a long time and flew on many flight decks offline with crews who were unfamiliar with SFO operations. SFO is a bad habit of saying cleared RNAV visual 28 right lateral course only. Parentheses, you are not cleared for the RNAV visual 28 right in that case, and I hate them saying the word cleared. Then they keep you high. Often unfamiliar crews start to second guess whether they could ascend or not, and I've seen more than one crew start down without a full approach clearance. I politely chimed in that they did not have a descend clearance yet. In all of those instances, the three of us already had a good rapport and thanked me profusely for helping mitigate a potential pilot deviation. I obviously do not micromanage the comm and can read the room if the crew does not want to chat, but I am there as an additional crew member, and although I enjoy some leeway, such as reading or using a PED, I am not going to completely remove my own essay from the flight. Keep up the good work, and I love the Roger Reeves series. Will. Well, there you go.
I mean, it feels like we just keep getting great emails every episode with a good point. So I think that's a good example of why you would want to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Good perspective, Will. Good perspective. And we'll just continue to get these emails, apparently. Okay. Another email says, gentlemen, you asked for feedback on episode frequency, and I thought I'd share it. I'll say up front, I was skeptical of the shorter, more frequent episodes. I tend to listen to an episode when I have a little more time in the car, or when I'm doing non-pilot stuff at home. I feel like I'd be put off by more transitions, so to speak. It hasn't really affected me at all. I don't feel it's any harder to listen. Turns out those smartphones are smart enough to just roll right into the next episode without interruption. If I were in your shoes, I think it'd be a good way for you to be in front of your customer with more frequency for a similar effort. Thanks for the quality content, real talk, and fun banter. Give a holler if either of you wind up visiting Boise. First round is on me. And that's from Mike.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Mike.
I like that.
Good to hear. Yeah, I guess that is a good point, too, where the podcast player just keeps rolling to the next show. So that is a good point. It basically is the same thing.
Yeah. All right. Up next, I'm listening to the new episode and the talk about the guard police came up. I heard an exchange one day after someone was hailing Mayday. Some pilot, probably a Delta captain, came on and said, "You're on guard. This is for emergencies." And the guy hailing Mayday came back, "That's the whole effing point of me saying Mayday first." It was quite comical. We later heard the guy made a safe emergency landing. Keep up the great work. Love the show. Best wishes, Will.
Okay, now a couple episodes ago, you chastised me for not listening to Guard. And I now have to say I added it to my flow at 10,000 feet, like you suggested. And it actually came in handy the other day. We were flying in. Yeah. We were headed off and on our way to our destination on Guard, we heard a citation declare an emergency. And they're like, it was very brief. They're like, "We're descending." And they're like, "Okay." And we didn't, they called a few more times and did not hear anything. And then the next transmission we heard from, they were on their masks, and it became pretty clear pretty quick that they had some type of a pressurization issue, and they ended up diverting to our destination. And they were in front of us. And so we heard that and we're like, "Oh, wow." We didn't participate in the conversation at all, but we had the heads up that they were going to our airport. We slowed down early and made sure there was plenty of room for them to be able to get on the ground. And they did a great job. Turns out they ended up being at the FBO we were at. We parked right next to them and then went in there, and we tried to buy them a beer, but they were catching an airline flight home. But hats off to those guys that got the airplane down. But it did come in handy.
Welcome to the
I will say on the return flight home, there was
guard
a lot
monitors,
of,
Dylan. Congratulations.
Yeah. Professional pilots, I know. But then on the way back, it just completely canceled all that out because there was just meowing, especially by when we fly over Salt Lake City. I think kind of by the Delta base, it just gets even worse, and it was nonstop. And I was like, all right,
let me guess, you didn't laugh once,
done.
right? You just shook your head in disappointment at the professionals.
This isn't keep these airwaves clear.
Right? Did you?
No, it was.
God, sometimes it's funny, dude.
No, but it's just
I don't care who you are.
It's funny. It's funny to listen to. It's just my problem is then I like miss a transmission or something because it's stepping over where our call or something.
You gotta turn like
it is.
I always put the guard knob halfway in between COM 1, like on the knob. The volume.
I know.
So let me give you another little hint, okay, about monitoring guard.
Thank you. A little radio technique. Thank you. I appreciate
that.
Just
half as much volume.
Someone played a recording over it. Oh, it was so good. Someone played a recording. Like clearly, they figured out how to plug their smartphone in to directly play audio through the mic jack, and someone was playing in
get worked up and snap at him.
No, I think that was, because the whole game is them just trying to bait somebody.
Oh, totally. And that's amazing how people fall for it, though. That's the best part.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Guys still fall for it. Unbelievable. All right. So a great email. Thank you, Will. And let's see. Go ahead with the next one.
Gentlemen. 1, I have listened to almost all 21.5 episodes. Love your show. Tell everyone about it. 2, listening to the EVTOL episode 119. My concern with a fleet of EVTOL aircraft is the airspace congestion. I hope the FAA puts in place limitations on altitude, speeds, air routes, etc. to keep other traffic clear, much like the UAV Part 107 rules. Not sure that the congestion issue was covered in the episode. I am 4,300 total-time private jet captain in my 50s, actively flying in large cities where EVTOL is proposed to launch. Maybe I will fly EVTOL in the future, given my rotor and fixed-wing ratings. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, I'm sure this is under consideration on how to manage that kind of traffic. I mean, obviously, but the thing is, I think it's going to be similar to the drones. It's going to be very low altitude, right?
Well, the real question is, I think, especially for Archer, was like they're trying to be that last mile delivery service for United. So that means that they've got to be going in and out of that airline terminal airport.
Yeah, but it's kind of like helicopters.
So then how do you manage
it's just like
that?
how the helicopters go. They have their own departures that they go from the center of the airport, perpendicular to the runway out or whatever. And so I don't think that. I think it's going to be a whole nother like layer of traffic, right?
Yeah.
But what do we know? To be fair, we have no idea.
We'll be curious. What is the sound of that vehicle going to make compared to a helicopter? Is it? I think they said it was like half as loud.
Well,
but then if there's a ton of those aircraft moving low level, then you have all sorts of noise complaints potential that get lumped in with the airport. So then you as a fixed wing operator may not be making, have increased your noise signature, but because there's increased traffic, there's an increased awareness, and then you're all lumped together. That could be an issue. I
think the is going to be like when I say layers of traffic, I think that helicopters, as far as like news helicopters, the police, all those guys that are operating within the bounds of a city, and UAVs that the cops, the fire department uses now, along with recreational users and everything else. And these EVTOLs are all going to be in the same kind of layer of traffic at lower altitude. So I don't, I guess I haven't really thought much about it conflicting because there's so, the traffic on fixed wing is so defined on these arrivals and stuff but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch, just like anything else, to see how something totally new gets integrated into a very already busy airspace system. But
yeah, and in these big cities that they're talking about, I know there's a lot of cities just don't have the heliport space. NYC's got a couple of different heliports built in. Okay, that's great. I know Chicago doesn't really have a ton built up. And so the real estate becomes very valuable in those cities. So that's going to be another thing to watch. So I think there's going to be a lot to see.
Yeah, I agree.
So good insight. Thank you for that, Darren. Okay, that's going to do it for the mailbag. Info at 215podcast.com if you want to be a part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from our listeners and attempt to learn from each other. So appreciate, keep your reviews coming, your feedback, good and bad, and on we go. Max, since we took vacation, will you agree to do 2 flight advices again?
Sure.
So we can catch up? We're
It
in the
would be my
backlog.
pleasure.
Excellent. Before we jump into flight advice, we of course want to remind our listeners that the flight advice segment is brought to you by Harvey Watt. They are the world's largest provider of loss of medical insurance for professional pilots. Over 70,000 professional pilots trust Harvey Watt to protect that white little weirdly shaped piece of paper that you got to carry around. If you lose that thing, you're going to lose your ability to bring in an income, protect your family, protect your certificate, harveywatt.com. Check out all of the offerings that they provide. On to flight advice.
All right.
Hey guys, I'm looking to apply and get this summer internship at one of the major airlines. And I am credit-wise a second semester junior in college. My school has an aviation program, and I'm in the management concentration with goals of becoming an airline pilot. I am handling training part 61 and looking to buy my own aircraft to train in to keep costs down. Another long story and question for advice another day. I currently work for the company I'm looking to do the internship with on the ramp, which is United. The internship is in the flight operations department at the NOC, working closely with the chief pilot's office along with flight standards and various job roles in the flight operations department with a focus on becoming a professional pilot. Absolutely love the podcast, been a long-time listener, and I'm hoping to receive your valuable advice as to what steps I should take next and how to make myself a better candidate.
The biggest thing you already have going for you is that you already work on the ramp for that company. And I think companies always like kind of promoting from within and helping people rise up the ranks. So I think that's going to help your cause quite a bit. I don't know. What other suggestions do you have, Dylan?
You know, it's stuff we've all talked about before. Any sort of outside the cockpit experience that you can bring, you know, oh, I volunteer here, or I'm involved in this group on campus, or, you know, anything that you can do to stand out. Like you said, it's huge that you work for United already. I love this question because I don't feel like we've really talked about internships a ton, but I feel like if you're at an aviation university or you're at a university that gives you credit to do this, this is a no-brainer move.
Yeah, for sure.
Internship at a major airline is a no-brainer move because you just never know. Yeah, it's not that, you know, a year ago, it was not that hard to get hired at a major, and an internship probably didn't do anything. But there will be a time when the internship will be key. And back when we were in school, that was a huge deal. That internship was basically a guaranteed interview, and that was the best shortcut there was at that time, and it'll probably be that way again in the future.
Yeah, it made you way more competitive at much lower times. Is basically you could almost, it depends on a lot of things, but you were guaranteed to get an interview basically as soon as you became eligible to whatever the time requirements were at that time, which obviously they fluctuate given supply and demand. But the other thing too, where did you do the internship? I forgot.
I didn't. I actually had, I don't know if I've ever told this story on the podcast, but I actually had to make an extremely difficult internship decision. And it may, I don't want to like blow this out of proportion. It might have changed the course of my life, actually.
Oh.
Which I'll tell that story.
Is that how you ended up getting my sister pregnant?
Here in a minute.
Or it doesn't have anything to do with
that? No.
Oh, okay. That's a different story. Got it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's much longer down the road. No.
Because that definitely changed the course
anyways,
of your life.
just, no. Nah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It was many years after we were married, but okay. So to put a bow on this, and I'll tell my story. It was interesting. The internship, our friends that did it, like Continental was the one that happened to be that people could get. And they had the minimums, and they said, just get, you know, whatever it was, 500 turbine PIC. I can't remember what the numbers were. And so our friends that actually are the farthest along in the seniority list are the guys that went to like Great Lakes and flew the turboprop and said, all I've got to do is just check the box to get that time. And they got it as quickly as possible. And you remember our friend Billy, he was my flight instructor. And within 2 years, he was flying the Dreamliner. Like, it was unbelievable, like the jump he had, and in a time where it was hard to get a job. So it can be a really, really good shortcut. One piece of advice, and you did this, Max, you actually did an internship at American. So you might have a little bit more, but he said he's going to be working in the chief pilot's office. I would get the letter of assuming your internship goes well, get the letter of recommendation from your chief pilot then, because that chief pilot may not be in the chief pilot's office when it comes time for you to like actually interview with the major.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
And things can happen.
Things happen. People retire. You just don't ever know. So get those letters of rec. Yeah, before you leave. But the other thing too is doing it not only for, what you said, the career progression, and that doesn't necessarily have to be at a major airline. If you want to be a Fortune 500 corporate pilot, you can do an internship at one of those companies, or do an internship wherever you think you want to work. But irregardless, even if you don't know, do an internship anyway, because I remember I did the math on it, and the credits, you still have to pay for the credits through your college, but they were way reduced rate compared to what normally you would pay for like electives, just like BS classes that you're going to pay a bunch at regular rate for. So even including, like I had to go to Dallas and had an apartment and things, but even including that, it was still way more efficient way to get like 6 credits or whatever I got that summer. So from a cost situation, it was advantageous, not to mention from, career progression. I mean, I had a multi-engine private pilot certificate, I'm pretty sure was all I had at the time. And I got to go on a 777 delivery. I flew a brand new 777, like from like on the way back to Dallas to take it for initial acceptance from Payne Field. I got to do I was jump seating around on every airplane American had at the time. And at that point in my life, it was, I was a college kid. It was a blast, dude. I was just every weekend going everywhere, and I got all kinds of cool experience. I learned a ton. It was super. And then I didn't ultimately end up wanting to go to American when it came time, but that experience was super valuable, and it was great. So anybody that is at that stage in their career, or training in college, for sure do an internship. Even if and the other thing too is you could make up one. Like if there wasn't an actual internship program, and your uncle works for the game and fish department in Arizona who has a flight department, you can be like, hey, can I be an intern there? And you just submitted, hey, I'm going to be an intern here, blah, blah, blah. And you could make your own internship. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to do, but there's a very small window in your life where you can do an internship.
Christian,
that window is probably 4 to 6 years.
Christian, who I fly with, did one for the Idaho Department of Aviation. And they'd fly around into all the backcountry airstrips to check stuff. And there's also internships you could do that are just super cool experience. I mean, I would love that. That may be the thing I always say is like, when you can do something cool, like go do an internship at like an Alaska bush, flying operation, or somewhere like, the Mission Aviation. I don't know if you could do something overseas, like for the summer, that would be the move. Like even do a second one. You got to do summer instead of,
and you usually can. You can usually do in your junior and your senior year.
Yeah, I just remember in college everybody sticking around for the summer and taking like summer classes. Everyone was just jacking around. Like there was way better uses of your time. I remember I didn't, because I was cheap, and I'm like, I don't want to spend all the money and time. Like I'll just go home and get a job or something. But that would be. Do multiple internships. If I could go back and I would have done that. Done like a serious, like, hey, major airline internship, and then done one that was like some real adventure.
Yeah. See, so I'll tell my story just because I think it is interesting. So, this is the year is 2004. I had not technically graduated because I needed some more credits over the summer. So I was going to graduate in the fall, even though I'd already walked. Applied for an internship at Alaska Airlines, my hometown airline. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. And at the same time, got a job offer to be a CFI at Embry-Riddle. And so my class date, and the thing with Alaska was weird. They didn't call me for my internship until like late in the summer, when I'd already gotten the job offer from Embry-Riddle to be a flight instructor. And, that was back when it was pretty hard to get a job as a flight instructor. Things were not moving very, very good. And so I had a really difficult decision to make. Do I go do an internship at Alaska, or do I start building flight time as a flight instructor right away?
Well, turns out you made the right decision.
And I went and I did the CFI. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think it's more important for me to, this is a good job. I have the offer. I think I got to take the job and be building the flight time versus the internship, which would be good. But, had I done it differently, I probably would have skewed, assuming, I had a good experience doing that internship, everything went well, I probably would have skewed all of my career goals towards meeting the minimums at Alaska and trying to get to Alaska as quickly as I could, and it probably would have had a completely different trajectory on my life.
Why did you do the internship so late? Why did you apply for it at the end of your college time?
I know. It was a good question. Why did I do it that way? I don't remember, because I didn't. That's probably my biggest regret, is I didn't do the internship the junior year. And the reason is I had to transfer into Embry-Riddle. And so I didn't.
You did?
I had already lost a summer. Yeah. And so my timeline was kind of all messed up.
Where did you go to school before Embry-Riddle?
Oregon Coast Community College, $11 a credit hour.
Wait, did you get all your did you do 2 years there? Like, get all the prereqs? And
no, I did a couple semesters there.
Why?
To transfer it. Well, because
was this my question is, was this like your strategy to then go to Embry-Riddle and save money, or were you didn't know what you wanted to do? So you were just kind of
no. I did end up saving money. No, but here's a fun fact that but maybe most of our listeners don't know. I was homeschooled. And so in the state of Oregon, graduated from homeschool, applied to Embry-Riddle, and they're like, we'd love to have you, but we need you to transfer
in.
That's
cute.
We're
that
not
you
were
take schooled at home and all, but
yeah, good job.
We're not really.
It's kind of weird that you filled your application out in crayon. But
can you send us a class picture? Just you and your mom?
Yeah, it's just me. Our best student is applying.
I remember when I found out your homeschool, I'm like, what? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah.
It's funny because I've had a lot of other homeschooling.
You still have questions.
I do. Well, I've flown with some people that homeschool their kids. It's really interesting now. Now I feel like I have a good grasp on how that works. But yeah, I remember that was such a foreign thing when you told me that.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Well, it was crazy too. So then I transferred into Embry-Riddle, and that was when they had an instructor shortage. So I didn't even get to fly my entire freshman year. My sophomore year was September 11th. So they shut the whole flight training program. So I didn't even start my private until the spring of my sophomore year. So I was behind.
Oh, wow.
In flight training a year and a half. And I still graduated. Ian got my CFI by the time I was done. So I ripped, but I had to spend a lot of time over the summer.
Here's a question, though. Like, if you were going to a college aviation program, would you, if you were going to send one of your kids, right, would you do the thing where would you get them their private before they went? Or would you, and then do like the, little flight course that's much shorter? Or would you have them get their private at the university flight program or whatever flight program they're doing?
I would do the private beforehand, but I'd make sure it's a place with structure that has like, here's our flows, here's our call outs, here's our ops, something. A Part 141 school. See, the problem with me was where I grew up, there was it was the CFI out of the back of the hangar. There was, come on down and we'll do a lesson type of stuff. There was no real curriculum or anything. But that's kind of the
point of the course they normally make you take, is to get you used to that sort of program, like the more structure versus just.
But here's what happened. Like the washout rate of that was super high.
Yeah, I do remember some of my students too having some trouble getting on the program.
Super high washout. Yeah, super high.
It's just a hard thing to do too, because you're like a freshman, you're trying to figure out how to do your own laundry too, and like all this other stuff, and then
it's a lot. It's a lot, and it would depend. Now, if you came from somewhere with some structure, it would be easier. So yeah, interesting tangent. That was a good flight advice though. That was unique. I like that. You want to read the second one here?
What's good, boys? Gen Z pilot here. Currently working on my commercial license and also becoming a senior cadet at a regional. My question is, what do you guys think about training contracts and staying with a cadet program? Love the shows and would love some stickers. Thanks, boys. Go Dogs. That's a really hard question. That's like asking, what do you think of eating fish? Like, that's a very broad question. Like, you have to. It depends on what the terms and conditions are of the training contract, and it also depends on where the industry's at. Don't you think?
Well, yeah. And the other problem too with a lot of these cadet programs is you make commitments, but the other party often does not. What are you getting in return for that contract is also a question. I don't really, senior cadet and a regional. I didn't know regionals were making you sign training contracts to be in a cadet program. I mean, are they giving you money
that's
for
what
training?
you would have to assume. A training contract traditionally is that somebody else is paying
Yeah.
and you're giving a commitment of time.
Yeah. So without knowing all the details, I would assume he is getting money for primary training, not training in the airline's aircraft.
Yeah.
Is that where you're like, maybe they're giving you money for your instrument and commercial?
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, that's just yeah. And so if that's the case, I mean, what's your financial position? There's just so many different ways to look at that. Could you afford it? Is it worth going into debt? Do you, how long is the contract?
Yeah.
I would say, Max, you've said this before. This is actually really good advice. You can do anything for a year, especially when you're young. So I feel like if you're getting money for your primary training and you're getting a training contract for a year or something like that, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, well, for sure. And again, it just depends on it's always a balancing act, right? Because it's what you're going to commit for what you're looking for in return. And it just depends on how quickly you can expect to progress under the airline. It's so dependent on so many things.
Yeah.
It's very hard to give just a blanket answer. But here's what he would say. What do we think about it? What I think about it is that if you do careful evaluation of the cost benefit analysis as far as actual costs in monetary value of your time and what benefit you can expect to see out of it, and you just balance that all out. And if that seems like the best course of action, giving maybe your finances, where the industry's at that certain time, you just have to balance all of those factors and make a careful decision and compare that against what other options you have, whether that's taking out a loan to then go to all HCPs and bang out your training, what other options you have on the table. You just have to compare it to all of those and make the best decision, because a lot of times though, you're making decisions without knowing all the information. You don't know where the industry is going to be in a year when you're done with your training or however long it's going to take. There's a lot of unknowns too. And at some point, you just have to make your best educated guess.
Yeah. And the other thing I would want to know too is will they start repaying are they taking out loans in your name that they're going to pay? And it's all contingent upon you getting hired, and will they be hiring when you're ready to be hired? There's a lot of variables that are going to be out of your control. So you really want to see what they're going to be, what the fine print is, because if there's anything we've learned, and we've seen this over the past few years, is things are changing so quickly. Regionals were dying for anybody they could get. Oh, never mind. Now actually we have too many first officers. Now we really need captains. Now we need this. We're not even going to hire anybody. No, we can't. Now the engines are defective. Our fleet's grounded. We can't hire. And we're just there's just so many factors out of your control. Just be very careful of any obligations you have where it's predicated on some external factor that you may not be able to control.
There you go.
That's it. Okay. 2-for-1 flight advice. If you've got flight advice questions for us, you know where to go. The website, 215podcast.com. There's the flight advice anonymous form you can fill out, and you can just go in there, put as much information as you're comfortable. Listen, if you tell us where you live, how old you are, your marital status, familial status, that kind of stuff can help a lot for a lot of these questions. So fill out that form to your comfort level. We'll be happy to do our best to answer those questions. Anything else to add here, Max, before we get out of here?
I don't think so, man. I think we've covered everything until we do this again next week.
Non-revving, internships, go-arounds. I mean,
Jeff
we
Kersey
hit it all
and the
today.
PJP.
Very
hopeful burning down at the house.
Unbelievable.
All the things.
That's right. Everything. All right. Before we go, of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Harvey Watt Advanced Aircrew Academy, Veris Jet Sales, the AirComp Calculator, and our boy Timothy P. Pope, Certified Financial Planner for Pilots. You can find information about all of our sponsors in the show notes. Just swipe on down in your podcasting app. We'll be back next week with another riveting episode of the 21.5 Show. Until then, remember,
flexibility is the key to air power. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.